Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson coming to you from Eastern Kentucky, up in the hills, in a holler. Hatfield McCoy feud country, of all places. Yes, it sure is. That's exactly where I am right now. So I'm trying to adjust the camera from my little space back here where I'm doing these live shows. So if you were on with me earlier, you got to watch me make a Boy Scout meal. And it's also known as a panhandler's meal or hobo meal, something like that. It has all kinds of different names. Dad taught it to us way back when we were little things here in the hills. And with all the Boy Scouts around, I'm waiting for it. It should be ready in about 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes, maybe something like that. And so that's not the big news for the day, though. This morning you did get to watch me make a cherry pie. I make mine a little bit special. Okay, I put brown sugar in there with it and blend all that together, and then put it down in the shell. And yeah, that was good too. I have a real strong affinity for a lot of good food. I really do. I like food. So anyway, big news for the day, if you haven't already heard, is the shooting that occurred in Dallas, Texas this morning, early. I think probably about 6:40 Central Time. A person killed some people at an ICE facility. Killed a couple of immigrants, I think. I'm not sure if it was one or two people killed at this point in time. We're still trying to figure all of that out. I'm watching Fox News over my head above me here. And so the person killed themselves, but they also attacked an ICE facility. And then on some of the bullets and some of the shell casings of the bullets themselves, they had written anti-ICE on there. And all day long, I've been worried that somebody was trying to tie us to another shooting, because I knew that it would be horrendous, that it would be used as an opportunity to round us all up. It's coming, folks. We know it's coming. We know that's what they want to do. The first person out here on this crazy side of ours does something stupid like that, and they become the poster child for reenactment of the Japanese internment camps, only this time for 1.6 million trans people here in the country, based on the bad behavior of 20 over the past 20 years. But that's never been the point, has it? They just don't want trans people around. All you have to do is read Project 2025 to know that. I mean, that's exactly what they say there all the time. I mean, they've made it clear. They've been pushing for this. Conservatives have been pushing for removing LGBT people and trans people from all of the public square for 50 some years, 70 years now. They tried it in the 50s. They tried it back in the 50s with Alan Turing, after he had helped them win the war against the Germans by solving the Enigma code. And he was a computer scientist, too, a person who actually was probably can be considered as the father of modern computing. But it turns out he was gay, and they didn't like that. They thought it was something they could cure, so they put him into a mental health institution and conducted electroshock therapy on him, and in the off chance that they could cure him of it. And no doubt they prayed over him, laid hands on him in all kinds of ways. They tried to figure out how they could break this thing on him that had made him a gay man. Can't be done, folks. You can't undo what has been made already, which was there from the beginning. You can make people hide. You can force them to renege and say, oh, no, don't do it. I won't do it. No. Torture never works. And that's what that was. They tortured this man, Alan Turing. This is all during the McCarthy period, even though he's British. But this was during the McCarthy period. And what they were doing here in the United States was, they were figuring out how to get rid of all the gays and lesbians who had been working for the federal government in the 1950s. And they did that with the Lavender Scare, pushed people out because they considered them to be security threats. Yep, folks. Have we heard that narrative before? Yes, we have. It's been there. It's been told. It's been done before. We know exactly how this stuff works. What's going on today is nothing new, except it's like 10 times worse. Now we know what they want to do. They put it out in a manifesto. They wrote it out for us to see 3 years ago, put it out there and said, okay, this is what we want to do. And Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation made it very clear what they wanted to do. In the first 3 or 4 pages of the the introduction, the forward to Project 2025's mandate for leadership. Yeah, I mean, it says it clearly right there on page 3, 4, 5, right somewhere around in there. It tells you exactly what they want to do. They said that 2 or 3 years ago. They laid the blueprint out. And then we had this current president going, no, I don't know anything about Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. Never heard of it, never been involved with it, and not going to be engaged with it. I'll do what I want to do. But guess what? Nearly every person he's got has been associated, every person in his administration at the upper levels have been associated in some way with Project 2025, from Pete Hegseth, Russell Vought, you name it. They're there. They've been there all along. They've been implementing it. So we knew they were. I tried to tell people that's what they were going to do. They had plans to do this. But also you have to know that this is not new, folks. They've been wanting to do this for 70 years, to go after LGBT people and trans people, and to call them transvestites back then, and under different names and different things. Whatever the term was, they didn't want to see trans people or LGBT people in the public square. They didn't want them around anything. They were blaming them for all kinds of ills. And I mean, do you remember some of the hurricanes and stuff that swept through the continental United States, or the southern coast of the continental United States? Do you remember what people like Pat Roberts were saying, and Jerry Falwell, and different ones at the Heritage over at Liberty University, and Franklin Graham and all of that bunch? You know what they were saying about those hurricanes? It's the will of God. It's the vengeance of God. He is actually, the punishment of God is being forced upon the country right now. And these hurricanes are because of gay people. That was in the early 2000s. That was in the 1990s. That was in the 1980s. I mean, where have you been? They've been saying this for the longest time. And now they've got a vehicle through which to do it and accomplish what they want, because now they have an administration that has tied itself at the hip to Christian nationalism, which is actually an oxymoron. Because if you're ultra Christian, or if you're ultra nationalist and you want to exclude people from your country, or you put up barriers to them, or you say that these people aren't worthy of being here in this country, or if you're one of these people like Joel Weibon, who's a pastor, who says stuff like, we only want to have heritage Americans here with the right to vote. You know what I mean by heritage Americans? Somebody whose family has been here since, I don't know, before the Revolutionary War, the 1700s. I'm one of those people. My family's been here since 1630s, maybe even before that, 1630s and 40s. We have been here in Virginia and North Carolina, the colonies. So I guess I'm one of those heritage Americans. But they say, their question was, what is an American? What does it take to be an American? And I said, there's only one thing, there are two things that it takes to be considered an American. You know what it is? There are only two things. Two. That's it. One, born here. Two, naturalized here. There are no footnotes to that. There are no caveats to that. There are no other descriptors to that. That's what it takes to be an American. There are no heritage limitations. Joel Weibon is also the same person who wants to say that women should not be in federal government and should not be in an elected body at all, in any position of authority anywhere, and their only responsibility is making babies and making sure the house is taken care of properly. He's so offended by strong women. He's just such a jerk. Really, he is. He's just got it bad. He really does. Oh my God, he's so afraid of women. And that goes with Doug Wilson. That goes with the entire church, in which our dear leader, dickhead Pete Hegseth, adheres to. Excuse me. The Secretary of War. That's his church. And he's been having monthly prayer sessions and church meetings at the Pentagon. I want to ask you, look, I was raised in a Christian environment. I actually worked for Kenneth Copeland Ministries down in Texas. one of those evangelical Paris, what's the word I'm looking for? Apostolic Christian groups who feels that they're not beholden to anyone except themselves. In other words, they have nobody to tell them that they're going down the wrong road. But I worked down there for 6.5 years. Yeah. Trying to find me. I found me. I was already there. They couldn't do anything about it. That's just the way it works, folks. So anyway, that's what Joel Weibon believes and Pete Hegseth. And it's also what J.D. Vance believes on the other side with the Catholicism and the Opus Dei that he's a part of. Peter Thiel kind of militant Catholicism. That's what Vance is part of. He wasn't raised in that environment, but that's what he adopted and became part of in his life. So J.D. Vance is really an interesting character because, how many of you actually know that J.D. Vance is not his birth name? You are? Yeah, really. His birth name was J.D. Bowman. James David, I think. James David Bowman. But his family were drug addicts. His mom, people over on that side. And so he was raised by his grandmother, and he took on the name of Vance, which was his, part of his family name. And he legally changed it to Vance. So I'm going to tell you something. If you can accept J.D. Vance as being your vice president with that name because he's legally changed his name as such, well, no, I've legally changed my name to Cassandra, and it should be really easy for you to just follow suit with that. Right? You don't want to be a hypocrite, do you? Yeah, didn't think so. None of us do. So I respect J.D. Vance as being our vice president. Vice President J.D. Vance. He legally changed his name. I'll respect that thing. I expect the same thing in return, but I'm not going to force myself on anybody. And J.D. hasn't forced himself on anyone either. Well, wait a minute now. He is the vice president, so his name's everywhere. but that's quite all right, okay? That's quite all right. I don't have that kind of authority. I don't want that kind of authority. So, it's just a matter of decent respect, right? Come on. Just go along with it. You'll be all right. Just let people live. And then we have the idiots out here shooting up things who killed Charlie Kirk. That was idiotic. That was just plain stupid. I disagree with the Christian nationalism that underpins everything that Charlie Kirk believed in. And if you don't think it was Christian nationalism, well, you haven't been paying attention. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly the same stuff that Matt Walsh believes in. He actually Matt calls himself a theocratic fascist because he is self-aware enough to know that that's what he believes. These other people, Charlie and Turning Point USA and Christopher Rufo and all of these, Ben Shapiro and different ones, they don't have the guts to admit that they're actually theocratic fascist. Matt knows, though. It's in his bio. He'll tell you. He's self-aware, and he doesn't hide behind some fake name and an avatar all made up over there to hide behind on Twitter. You see Matt, you get exactly Matt. You know exactly who he is. He's not hiding behind it. But you have a lot of other wackos over there, though, who are hiding behind these fake names and these little avatars, these little made-up images of themselves, and they're saying, and when they talk to me, they go, this is me paraphrasing a whole bunch of them all together into one big thing. They're going, why don't you just be a real person? Be who you were born as. And I go, all right, so you support Vance? Okay, we'll just jump beyond that one. And you're trying to tell me to be real with you, and I am real with you. Exactly who you see is who you get, who you hear is who you get. I'm not trying to hide any darn thing from you in that regard. That's who I am. And you're the one who's got some pink blue dragon or something over there by your name, for your name, and you expect me to treat you with any kind of respect because you're the one hiding behind some idiotic name? Oh, come on. If you want to talk to me about any of these things, you better come at me with a confidence, folks. You better know who you are. I know who I am. You obviously aren't confident enough to be able to tell the world who you are. You hide behind some fake, idiotic name. It happens too many times. I've been railing on that one for, well, since Twitter came out, and I saw all these people hiding behind their fake names. I'm going, there's no honor in that. You either say what you want to say and mean what you want to say, and then don't come at me hiding behind your fake name and demand that I be real with you. I am real with you. And what you see is it. I mean, this is me. I'm not hiding anything about who I am there. Okay? So don't hide behind that crap. It's just so, oh my God, it's so annoying. It's dishonorable. It's horrible, really, that you think that you have any sway over any conversation with me hiding behind a fake name, a nom de guerre that you have made up to suit your needs and your interest. And I know you tell me you're protecting this and you don't want to say that and you're afraid of what might happen if someone finds out you actually say and believe these kind of things. And let me tell you, you come by it honestly. Thomas Jefferson did the same kind of thing, and Hamilton did too. Both of them wrote anonymously in the papers that they controlled because they didn't have the guts to come right out and say, hey, this is me. I am Alexander Hamilton. And, this is what I believe. But no, it took us a little bit of time to realize that the names they were using were fake. They were hiding behind fake names. They didn't want the world to know who they really were. And also, they were in positions of authority, being on, George Washington's cabinet, Jefferson as Secretary of State, and Hamilton as, I think, a Secretary of Manufacturing Industry. Those two men hated each other. They hated each other with a passion, really. Even Martha Washington hated. Well, she didn't even like. She called Thomas Jefferson a hypocrite. If you read some of her papers, Martha Washington, George Washington's wife, she didn't speak to Thomas Jefferson for 10 years. She considered him to be such a hypocrite. Say one thing here and something else over there, and deny over there and say it another way over here. That's Thomas Jefferson, folks. That's the person who wrote the Declaration of Independence. She couldn't trust him. She could not trust that man. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter in 1816, on July 12th of 1816, to a friend by the name of Samuel Kercheval. I use this letter a lot because it's just so powerful. He wrote that letter, and in it, near the top, he says, please don't tell anyone that I talk like this, I believe like this, and think like this, because I don't want them to know, at least not until after I'm dead and gone. And that's the last part I added in there, but about the dead and gone part, because that's when the letters all started piling up and coming back in, and we all figured out who he really was. But he said, don't tell anybody I think like this. The founding fathers were just people just like us, just like everybody else. They were no different. And he said, and they would be appalled if they realized that they had been put up on pedestals and made to be representative of the founding of the country. And Jefferson says, I knew them. They were just ordinary people, just like anybody else, folks. But they hid behind these different things. And people do that all the time. So coming back up to the modern era, still doing it today. Now, I get it that people want to kind of shield themselves and their families from prying eyes and all that kind of stuff. But don't talk to me about being real when you're the one hiding behind some fake piece of crap as a little avatar image of you in a frog suit. You know what the frog is from? That green frog thing, the little meme that has the green frog in. You know what that represents? You ever been on 4chan? That other social media site that's just for the extremists over there, the white nationalists primarily. That little frog, that's emblematic of who they are. Every time I see a green frog show up in an avatar of somebody over on Twitter or somewhere else, I'll go see if I can find them over on 4chan. Because I know that they're white supremacists. They think they are God's gift to all of creation and nobody else has a right to exist in this country except them. We've got people who will tell me that today, that they are protecting their heritage and protecting their nation. I had some guy tell me that the other day on Twitter. He wasn't hiding behind anything. He just used the name of a fort, A.P. Hill. His name was Hill, John Hill. So there could have been a big connection. He's just trying to protect his country. and his heritage. And you know what that meant? He was trying to protect the CSA, the Confederate States of America, and his heritage, which was, you know, and this is the thing that really got me. And he said this pointedly, he says, I am a racist. He wrote that. Can you imagine somebody actually coming out and telling you that? Well, that takes a lot. I mean, that person's honest with themselves. They know who they are. They know what they believe in, and they aren't afraid to tell you. And it's becoming really more prevalent these days. People have the guts to stand up and say, hey, look, I'm just a racist. And not me, but I'm just a racist. You know, I can't stand anybody who does not look like me. And you know something? That also comes by. We come by that naturally. Let's take a look at Ben Franklin. I talk about these letters a lot too, but he wrote a couple of letters in the 1750s. One in particular stood out in 1754. I think it was right there around that period of time, 1754. He was in Albany at the time, Albany, New York. He wrote a couple of letters, and his big concern, Ben Franklin's biggest concern. I remember reading Ben Franklin's autobiography as a child. I read it because it spoke to me that he was able to lay down a path that he could go and follow. I didn't know that this particular letter existed. It wasn't taught to anyone. We don't talk about them. It kind of challenges this Pollyannish view we have of the founding of our country. Okay. They were real people. Ben Franklin, actually, whenever he was working as a representative for the Continental Congress, the three different versions of the continental states of America, the Confederate States of America. It wasn't Confederate States, but it was the Confederate something. Got the name, just blew off the top of my head. Anyway, the three different versions, Articles of Confederation. That's what I was looking for. There are three different versions, and all three of them were weak and ineffective. They tried to make each one stronger along the way. Well, he worked for those, and he also became a representative of the United States government over in France. But when he was in France, he was really into just getting people to bring him some bodies so he could cut them all up and figure out how they all worked. Yeah. Middle of the night, you'd find Ben Franklin out going to the graveyard digging up. And that's true. You don't hear about that in the history books, do you? But these were people like that. Now, he wrote that letter, Benjamin Franklin, known with the electric kite. The kite got struck by lightning. That ran into the Leyden jar and just kind of, ding, that one. The letter he wrote in 1754, me paraphrasing it somewhat because it's been a while since I've actually looked at that letter, but it comes to my mind quite frequently. And it was, he said, now look, what if the Martians looked down upon the earth, looked down upon the great plains of America, and it was blackened by all of these swarthy people from around the world? Swarthy people, that was the first thing that kind of stood out for me, and blackened. And I'm thinking, okay, now where's this learned man going with that conversation and that letter? It turns out that what he was doing was saying, the only people we want here in America are Englishmen, white Englishmen, just Englishmen, period. We don't want anybody from France. We don't want anybody from Germany, because he considered anyone not English to be swarthy, a swarthy complexion, okay? And he said that in the letter, folks. Italians and Russians and Polish people and Africans, Indians, not American Indians, the other Indians. He didn't want anyone of a swarthy complexion to blacken the plains of America because he was concerned about how the Martians would view it. Mars had been, the canals on Mars had been discovered by telescope, and they were all thinking there was a lot of people on Mars. They built those canals, but they weren't canals. But they saw them as canals because that's all they could really imagine that they might be, because that's what they would have been for them. Anthropomorphic Mars, right? But anyway, so yeah, he wrote that in that letter, and he explained what swarthy is. So we come by all of that racist bullshit from a long way back. Jefferson was a smart man. He realized, he knew that it was wrong for one human to own another human, to enslave another human being. And he knew that. He said that many times. You know why he didn't do anything about it? He had the opportunity to. He could have pushed to ban slavery in the United States, in the new nation. He could have pushed, and he could have probably pushed it through. But you know why he didn't? It's not because he owned slaves. He knew that his ownership of slaves, that had come through him by heritage, you know? Came with the farm. No, he was afraid of what his peers would say about him if he fought against their free labor. As smart as he was also an idiot. He was he was yellow-bellied. He did not have the courage to stand on his convictions, on his principles, and say, no, we can't do this. We got to stop it. We have a chance. Let's stop it. He knew that should have been done, but he refused. And there was another reason he refused. He refused because he was afraid that the enslaved people would rise up and slaughter all the white people. Which begs the question, what was their lives really like when it came down to antebellum South and the lost cause and Gone with the Wind kind of thing that everybody looked at when that thing came out? They said, oh, they had it so good down here in the South. No, Jefferson was afraid because he knew they were not treated right. He knew they were not treated with any kind of human dignity. He was appalled at it, but he didn't have the strength of courage to stand up on his convictions and do something about it. And he said it in a letter. Well, I can't figure it out for myself, so I'm just going to pass it on. It'll have to be dealt with in the future. Some other generation will have to deal with this. He knew that it would come down to the Civil War. He hoped it didn't, but he didn't want to do anything about it. He wanted to make sure that he was dead and gone when all that actually got figured out. But he was. He and Madison passed away on July 4th, about 4 hours apart. Forget the year. 30, 34, 35, somewhere 18, 34, 35. Anyway, so I've rambled on and on and on, and I started out the day. I started out this conversation talking about what happened down in Florida, and I'm hoping that everyone will be able to find a way to protect yourselves. If you find anyone in the trans community who is out here doing stupid crap, if you don't want to confront them, show them to me. I'll call them out on it. I'll make a big deal about it. And Pam Bondi, if any of you are watching out there, put me at the top of your trans terrorist list. I've got to go check on my mom and brother and sister, and I've got to go make sure the food is not cooking away. Maybe you can come and help me, Pam and Cash and Dan and Hegseth and Vance. Oh, come on down. Come on down. We used to have moonshine stills around here. Dad actually built some. Don't tell anybody. Long time ago. I mean, a long time. He built one when he was in the Philippines in the Navy. Anyway. Oh my gosh. I'm going to go check on some food because I'm hungry, y'all. Have a great evening. Come back tomorrow. Let's hope that nothing crazy happens tomorrow. This has been one of those weeks. I've tried to have some levity with all of this, to be encouraging. And all I can tell you is this is the path forward. Find things to do where you are, right where you live. Find those things so that you can focus on those. Get your head away from the news up here, because it's up here for me. Get your head away from that stuff. Protect yourself. Protect your sanity. The biggest threat that we face is external to the threat to our stability, our mental health, our mental well-being. It's not in us because we actually do know who we are. We've known as long as everybody else has known who they are. It's never been an issue. The only thing that is a challenge is dealing with idiots up here who want to see us gone, who want to shove us back into the closet, under the floorboards, put concrete on top of it, and put a big fence around us and say, internment camp. But we'll get through this because we know how to do that, right? You do too. So you have a great evening. I'm going to go get some Boy Scout meal. I am starved. It's been a long one, and I'm getting tired. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.